What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Cold Front. Now, this past weekend, my wife and some friends of ours went to go see the new action comedy known as Novocaine out in the theaters. And I just want to kind of cut to the chase. Spoiler alert a little bit. I loved Novocaine. I love this movie. This is my favorite movie of the year so far. It's so kind of early, and I haven't been able to go to the theaters much as I would have liked to this far in life. Life can be life. Life is busy, but I do want to talk about Novocaine and kind of what we experience now. I do think something needs to be discussed. Is apparently I'm terrible at marketing of this film because I guess I gave some people the impression that this was some kind of scary movie because I said it was gory. This is an action comedy. That is the entire genre, and it's mostly comedy. It was funnier than most of the films I saw last year, and in the best way possible. But it is very, very, very violent, but almost to a degree that it's so over the top that I think you can kind of have fun with it. I don't know if that sounds demented or not, but when I say violent, I mean on the level of if zeros, obviously there's no violence, no gore, no blood or anything, and then you have Terrifier, uh, which would be the 10. It doesn't get. I don't think it can get much worse than that. This Novocaine probably over a 5. It's not closing into the 8-9 range. Now, if you're not someone who partakes in anything kind of crazy, if bones snapping, joints dislocating, blood squirting, burns occurring, kind of is something that you're instantly like, no, I don't want anything to do with it. Then do yourself a favor and don't ignore the rest of everything I'm going to say. Don't go watch this movie. Okay. I think it does it as well as anything out there. It's going for comedy. It's not mean spirited, which I think when movies are violent, but they're not mean spirited, you can kind of handle it better. But the concept of Novocaine is the brilliance of Novocaine. You have a man who has this disability. I've already forgotten what it's called. Shoot. CIPA, CIPA. Essentially, the dude can't feel pain. He can get injured and he still die. He gets some infection or something. You don't know about it. Right? If he's bleeding out outside of, I guess about to pass out, he didn't know about it. He gets stabbed, he doesn't know. So, which is kind of an interesting concept because this guy's not a fighter. And that's, if you've seen the trailer, you've heard everything about it. The concept is nerdy dude who can't fight falls in love with a girl. So it's really kind of part romance too. She gets kidnapped and boy, he's got to save her, but he don't know how to fight, but he can't get hurt. So things occur. I'll just say that much right now. They take that concept and fulfill just about everything that one can fulfill from that concept. But the thesis of this film is what I'm most interested in because yes, the action's great, the shots are really good, the camera work's excellent, the comedy is sharp. It's not all jokes. A lot of it's just physical comedy, and a lot of it's situational comedy. I mean, it is a fun movie. Like the best way I can describe this is energetic, caffeinated, and entertaining. Exactly my kind of thing. The thing is, the thesis of this film is the thing that kind of takes it up a notch. There's a lot of movies that are funny and full of action, and I don't really consider this spoilers. This moment is kind of in the trailer when he's first meeting this girl, because the whole beginning is he's falling in love with this girl, and that's why he goes on this journey to begin with. That's right, and it's very obvious early on that our main character is like this SIPA or SIPO, how I don't know how to. I know I'm a medical professional, but I don't really know how to pronounce it. That has become his life. That is who he is. He's like mid-20s, and that's all he knows is that this thing has overtaken him to the point to where it goes. It's how he organizes his morning routine. It's how he eats. It's how he thinks about things. It's how his schedule is set. Everything revolves around what he describes as a disability. And to some extent it is. I'm not like devaluing that, but it has overwhelmed his every thought. It has encapsulated him. And this is kind of interesting because it kind of reminds me of there's a debate that we had in PT school and I think in other medical circles of should we tell patients they have like fibromyalgia? Research that on your own time, but it's kind of a pain diagnosis. People like that exist, but the question that was posed to us sometimes in school is, do you tell people they have that? Because it's kind of a subjective diagnosis and it's something that is not really treatable. And so a lot of times when people get diagnosed with that, it overwhelms them. They're not someone who has fibromyalgia, they become fibromyalgia, and it becomes this negative feedback loop that's never ending and spiraling out of control. And this is not the exact same situation because this diagnosis is not fibro, it is an actual nervous system genetic dysfunction. But that is to say, it can have that same spiraling effect, that same negative impact of everything that controls every single aspect of this guy's life. And for good reason. But you can see where this guy is not a guy who takes risks. He's not a guy who tries to be happy, tries to live life. He's just in existence mode. And he meets this girl, and the point I'm getting at, that he meets this girl, and early in there's a scene in the film. This is the thesis of the film. He gets there, and they're sharing a slice of pie, and he doesn't want to eat the pie because he gets swallowed his tongue and die. He won't know about it. That's the worst what if case. We all have people in our lives. A lot of times, their mom, and for now malicious intent, but we're so like him upset big things in the film. And that's the thesis of the film. Is a reframing of his disability. He meets someone who his life has become fear. It has become anxiety, and he meets the antithesis of that. Someone who flips that on his head nonchalantly, like she doesn't even realize the effect she's having on him, and just it changes his life, and it's really beautiful, and the movie doesn't linger on that, but that subtlety kind of drives the film because a lot of times these kind of things happen, these movies happen, and you're like, well, why would you just met this person, like why are you willing to die for this person, whatever else, and it's just as much about the thesis and the concept and what she represents as much as it is about her. This is his chance to break out of this cycle and to save her. He's been anxiety driven his whole life, and now this girl gets captured, and she's the first person who's kind of gave him this thought of maybe this doesn't have to be this crippling thing that dominates your life. Maybe you can own this thing proudly and use it to better your life. And it's really it's like this movie has these little subtle moments like that, and that's the biggest one of just something that kind of touches your heart a little bit that we can all relate to. Like, oh man, if I had that disability, I'd want someone like that, someone to say that to me, not someone to constantly remind me of all the ways that things can go wrong, but someone who can acknowledge the things that can go wrong, but point me towards all the things that can make my life beautiful and more fulfilling. And all that being said, this is not a serious movie. But I do think that thesis and that concept and the writing in general is subtle enough, but poignant enough when it needs to be to kind of give this movie heart. It gives it a heartbeat that a lot of movies I've seen this year have not, and that made it very enjoyable. This will be a movie I could rewatch all the time. It was a total entertainment blast. And I think we get obsessed nowadays. This is one other thing that irritates the fire out of me with people. People, I talk to people, and I love talking about movies, but I talk to people, and they tend to fall into like one of two categories. They either they're so obsessed in particular about things being exactly realistic that they can't enjoy a good movie like this when it comes out because look, I'm a physical therapist. The realism and all that medical stuff that is in my mind in certain situations. But if you can't suspend your disbelief to go enjoy yourself in a movie, you're not fun to go to movies with, and you just, maybe you need to find a better hobby or change your personality. Because and my point being, if the survivability of everything this guy goes through is going to be something that holds you back, then ignore everything I've said so far. Don't go watch the movie, okay? Because I think they do as good of a job as they can of setting some things up, but like that's not the point. The concept is the point, and they fulfill the concept. They do the best they can to ground this as much as possible, but this is not a in-depth character study of someone who has this disorder, and everything being exactly scientifically accurate. And that's not the lens in which it should be viewed. And there's some people who are going to do that for some reason, but this is obviously a goofy action comedy with a very energetic tone and vibe. And then you have other people, on the other hand, who just can't see past some of the goofiness and and some of the kind of over the top violence part of it to see kind of the heart in the middle. And I think you got to have a balance here because I love these really well made prestige films. I would call Dune 2 last year one of those. I know it's a sci-fi thriller, but that should have won some more. I'm sure that's ridiculous. But I also enjoy these. It's a smaller film, but it's not trying to win awards. It's not trying to have some crazy symbolism, or it's not pretentious in any way. This is a movie trying to entertain the mess out of you, and it does that in spades. It does that really well and knows what it's doing. There's action on every turn. The comedy's natural and it's organic and it's smartly written. The love story is just good enough. It's not a romance, but it's just good enough to kind of keep you engaged. And it ends great. So, all that to say, I feel like we just don't get good movies like this anymore. The last movie that kind of gave me some of these similar vibes, but was albeit a little bit darker, was Baby Driver. And this is not in any way the same movie as Baby Driver, but something that's original, fresh, has its own unique tone and vibe, and something that's so rewatchable. This kind of, I think, if you liked Baby Driver a few years ago, you would like Novocaine. It's very much so to me could have coexisted in the same universe. Ton of fun, you guys. Please, 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 if you like action, if the violence part doesn't turn you off, because this one goes for the throat. But you're looking for something that for some reason has this hardcore violence and it's very lighthearted, goofy tone and sweet kind of comedy, which they're typically opposite, but they're blended together here. It fits. So I don't know how it fits, but it fits. It's very, very entertaining. So all that to say, this movie, Novocaine, I would end up giving it a oh shoot, I don't know if I should go this high, but no, I'll go 8 out of 10. I'll go 8 out of 10. I almost go nine. No, I'll stick with eight. The entertainment and the craft are just they're perfect. It fulfills everything you want out of all of that good stuff. And the writing's great. The thesis is great. I could envision a version of where it's a little bit more poignant in certain moments. And there's some writing decisions I can't go into if I go into spoilers. So I wasn't the biggest fan of in terms of storyboarding, but overall, as a total package, just an 8 out of 10. This is a great, great movie. I wouldn't be shocked if it's in my top 10 at the end of the year. It definitely will probably be in my top 15. But yeah, total blast. If all that sounds interesting, please, please go check this out. No Game was a for real.